week news once again. Let's just get into it on
The New England Take.
So the New England Take on WKXL, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM, and 101.9 FM, Concord and Manchester, respectively, and GraniteGrock.com. Thank you so much for picking up the show every Saturdays, both of these outlets. WKXL picks up the show, 8:30 AM on Saturdays. Be sure to check out NewEnglandTake.com. If you prefer the show as an email in your inbox every week as it comes out, that is the place to get it. And YouTube.com. I've been putting a lot of work into supporting the channel over there, building it up. We're over 500 subs. Let's try and get to 1,000 next. That really helps. So share the episode, like and subscribe. Means a lot to the show. So, all right, just me this week. AJ Kierstead, your host here on the show. We've got a lot of things going on. This is actually going back to November 3rd. NewHampshireBulletin.com. Ethan DeWitt is the author of this article. Republicans pitch plan to help impoverished voters comply with new proof of citizenship law. This is great. This is what we should be hoping for. This is from the article. Republican lawmakers passed a law last year requiring hard documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. Next year, those requirements are set to face their first major test, the federal midterm elections, which are likely to draw more than 500,000 Granite Staters. Now, as Democrats and voting rights activists argue the laws are unconstitutional and will prevent eligible residents from voting, lawmakers in Concord are attempting to make complying with the new requirements easier, and this is great. This is the way it should be happening. So, from the get-go, when it came to voting rights in the state, the original argument around it was primarily centered around students. You figure UNH, Franklin Pierce, New England College. We have all these schools across the state, and students want to vote in New Hampshire. I think that's terrible. I don't think you should do that unless you're going to put some skin in the game and move your license here, do all the normal things. But that's just my opinion on the matter. But I think it makes a lot of sense for there to be proof of that you live here if you want to vote. I have never really bought into the argument by a lot of Democrats when it comes to, you're just putting unneeded barriers, or you're just looking to make it hard so you got to re-register every time. It's like, no, it's just some basic things. You need to show a license. What really drives me kooky around a lot of this is the new Real ID stuff. Well, I'm done with that argument. You know why? The reason why I'm done with that argument is because we've had more than a decade to get that sorted out, and because the state government didn't get it done, or the federal government didn't get done, whoever it is botched the game when it came to making Real ID universal through lawsuits and things like Maine did. Here we are. Now we got to do with it. I had my Real ID for 5 years. As you re-up your license, you should make sure you have Real ID. But you need it for flying from now on, so figure it out, guys. It's not that hard to get an ID. You need an ID in order to work, to drive, to buy alcohol, to do all sorts of things. Get a loan. You got to have proof of identification. And if your ID has a different name because you're married, or you changed your name for whatever reason, you're going to have either a marriage certificate or some other legal documentation to show that that's the case. I don't think that's a crazy thing to have to provide. Now, by Republicans actually taking a stand and saying, "Hey, we're gonna handle this a little differently," that's great that they're gonna make it easier. It should not be hugely complicated in order to get access to identification. So the bill, House Bill 365, would require town and city election workers to contact New Hampshire's Secretary of State's office to attempt to confirm the voter's citizenship. The office would then need to make reasonable efforts, quote unquote, to do so, requiring the checking in state, out of state, and federal databases. But the bill includes an exception for voting day. Cities and towns and the Secretary of State's office are not required to help people obtain the documentation on election day if it would interfere with their duties, which is fine. The bill would create a process for people who want to obtain copies of the documents but cannot afford to do so. Very important. This is the big thing. If a resident is found to be indigent, the town or city may provide a voucher to cover the cost of recovering the birth certificate, passport, or other qualifying document, the bill states. If a municipality does provide that voucher, the Secretary of State would be required to reimburse the cost. The latest version of the bill directs that $50,000 in state funds be made available to do so. Awesome. You have some senior, they can't afford it. You have someone who's just out on their luck but is really, really motivated by whatever is happening in this election. There's an option. Let's remove any way for Democrats, this is me speaking on this as a right-winger, let's remove any barriers so that Democrats can't make their arguments when it comes to voting rules. So we need to have I do not understand why you think it's crazy to have documentation to vote. It is a common sense thing. It is a low barrier to entry if you're a contributing member of society. That it's constantly called out. I love the memes out there. There's all these man on the street interviews of these. Ultimately, it's mainly done by conservatives. Let's be honest here. It's an entertainment factor when it comes to it. But them asking people of that are black, Hispanic, different non-white groups in the inner city, would it be difficult for you to vote? And they go, no. Well, what if they require an ID? It's like, I got an ID. It's like, what are you talking about? It's the bigotry of low expectations to the nth degree when it comes to this sort of stuff. People have the ability to access an ID. If they literally are in such bad state where they can't figure out how to get an identification in some way, we got bigger issues with this individual and whether they can cast a vote or not. And ultimately, if they can figure out somehow to cast a vote, it's probably not a very quality vote that we really want to be focused on making sure that person is getting to the ballot box, because so some people, I'm sorry, yeah, you have the right to do it, but you got to put in a little bit of effort. It's just like with anything else. You want the ability to drive. Doesn't mean we're providing you a car. It's a little different because you have a right. It's a privilege to drive. But this argument is just bonkers. Republicans say the bill should assuage critics who say the law will punish people who do not have passports and birth certificates. This is Representative Joe Sweeney, a Salem Republican. Quote, it ensures that voters who are unable to produce the proof of citizenship due to financial means can access proof for voting purposes. Supporting the bill demonstrates their commitment to strengthen our existing election integrity laws, end quote. But Democrats said the bill does not adequately support cities and towns. They're trying to help their voters improve citizenship. Rosemary Rung of Merrimack said she was originally supportive of the bill, but later she felt she had been snookered. Quote, it looks great from the outset in that it's going to be a benefit, but we have no process in place, end quote. It literally outlines that they can contact the Secretary of State. This is, for those of you who don't know how administrative rules work from the state level, the Secretary of State would just create some rules to enable this to happen. It's not some magical RSA that needs to also be written like literally step by step. When laws are created that are then delegated to various state agencies under the governor, they have the ability to create rules that are then approved by JLCAR and various the executive council, things of that nature, to make sure that they can actually act on what the RSA requires them to act on. So the Secretary of State's just going to go ahead and turn around and create a process for this. That is a non-argument. It's you just don't want to play nice in the pool is how it comes across to me. Some Democrats raise issues with the amount of money provided to help municipalities. The bill would not actively set aside the $50,000, but would rather allow Governor Kelly Ayotte to request that it be drawn on the state's general fund, raising the potential for funding may not be there. I guess. I don't know. This is, let's just fix this. Let's make sure you need to have an ID in order to vote, something that should be the lowest barrier to entry if you're a member of our productive society in 2025. It's not the late 1700s when we're still figuring out how IDs work. We got IDs in this country. We're good to go there. Let's make sure that people who don't have the money to get an ID because they want to vote can get it. And if that means ultimately, hey, maybe we lower the cost of driver's licenses or something like that if you're at a certain income or something of that nature, fine. Maybe if you're on Medicare, you get a special exception. I don't know. There's all sorts of ways of making this happen, and where the politicians are just making it difficult for no reason. All right, let's move on to some things that are kind of federal, kind of not. So I'm recording this at 3:20 p.m. on Wednesday, November the 20th, 2025, and in theory, in about 39 minutes, the House will begin voting to end the federal government shutdown that has been in effect for 45 days, which is a new record. Woo! New record. We have a new record again of the federal government being unable to actually get anything done. Imagine that. Imagine my shock. Here we are, the federal government hopefully is going to be fixing up their budget, at least temporarily, but not without some political chaos. So it originally started with the Senate. They're the ones that have created the bill that has been passed in order to enable a temporary opening up of funding. Some things will be good for 12 months. That includes SNAP and a few other things. I think the TSA might be a part of that. The rest of it is going to be until the end, continuing until January. So in theory, the government can continue operating through a good part of January, and then who knows what happens then. Could be another shutdown for all we know. I had a good conversation with Ross Connolly on WDEV on this. I'll try and remember to include a link to my conversation with him in the episode description. He had his thoughts on it too. We see a lot of things eye to eye when it comes to this. We both on the right side of the aisle when it comes to politics, but it came down to Senators Hassan, Gene Shaheen, and some other moderates that ultimately said, this is useless. And here's the big deal that I want you to understand from my standpoint about the federal shutdown this go around. Total waste of time. Complete waste of time. Here's your analogy. If you are trying to rob someone and you point a gun at them, you don't put any bullets in the gun, you tell them you don't have any bullets, and you tell them to do what you want, they're probably not going to listen to you and take you very seriously in your robbery efforts here. The Democrats have no leverage. They are a minority. They don't hold control of the House or the Senate. They don't hold control of the executive branch. They don't even hold control of the Supreme Court and the judicial side. So if Democrats aren't happy with the state of things, they don't have any real say. I mean, very little. They have enough to hold it up, but that's literally it. If Republicans could snag a few more seats, which God knows if that's the case during midterms, because it usually goes to the other side if it's total control across the executive and legislative branch. But the Democrats don't have any say in what's going to happen. They can just gum up the works and make things and play difficult, but they don't have really any push to make things change. And what's I said this on WDEV, and I was surprised when I was actually watching Bridget Fedesi's Dumpster Fire episode for this week. She said the same exact thing. Basically, the government shutdown stopped because the Thanksgiving holiday is coming up, and the Democrats don't want to be blamed for everyone's holidays being ruined by the TSA not being able to function. So you got to figure the economic impact of the TSA not allowing flights. You got to figure the personal impact in people's lives, that their holidays are going to get screwed up. So Thanksgiving might still be a little screwy for some people, but when it comes down to Christmas, it's going to be totally set. It's going to be fixed. In theory, they probably will be able to get paychecks out to have TSA workers back fully in effect. Air traffic control, not TSA. That's the biggie that really matters in this situation. So if air traffic control is going to be back at it in the next, they got a couple weeks. They got 12 days here, 14 days here before Thanksgiving. They should be good to go, and we're going to be back up in operations. Now, if this held on a little longer, could you imagine the political ads that would have come from this? Not going to be good. I mean, yeah, both sides are going to have ads, but in my opinion, it's really going to come down to the fact that this was a Democrat shutdown. I don't buy the argument from so many people that this is a Republican shutdown. The Democrats shut it down. The Democrats are the ones that didn't want to just give a couple votes, find those in the middle, just get enough of them to be able to get the budget through so that the activist base can then say, well, we voted against it. They didn't do that. They just decided to say, no, I'm not going to do it, with no leverage or really any good reason for Republicans to listen to them. So here they are, and here we are now with Senator Gene Shaheen saying that who ultimately voted for the continuing funding, a bill that could have been signed weeks ago. I think in the second week of the shutdown this was proposed, so this is not a new bill. This is the same bill that was already on the docket, and the Democrats refused to vote for it until this past week. So Jeanne Shaheen voted for it, and then guess what? All the lefty activist progressive types that are running for office in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine especially are calling them out as stooges for the Republicans and things of that nature. Most interestingly, though, is the fact Jeanne Shaheen's daughter is running for federal office right now, and Ross Connolly said, "Well, it's probably going to be an awkward Thanksgiving dinner upcoming for them." But in my opinion, I think they were both playing the game, and I assumed that this was going to be happening. To have these are smooth operators. The Shaheen family is well known in the state. They're very well connected politically, legally. They're very well off. They got plenty of resources. If Jeanne Shaheen was going to do this, I guarantee that her and Stephanie huddled up and said, "Okay, you're going to go ahead and say whatever you're going to say, Stephanie. Whatever it is, you're running for office. You want to be able to be able to get the Democrat base to side with you, because they are all in a tizzy, because the Democratic base at this point is progressive. They're going to lean left. That's the way it is." And they probably went, is what it is. I don't know whether Stephanie's on board necessarily that Senator Shaheen did it, but I think they're both playing the game. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm being a cynical commentator when it comes to it, but they're smart people. They know what's got to happen. They know the federal government's got to reopen, and that if the Democrats continue to have it shut down, Stephanie's going to have a hell of a time at the midterms in order to make it through the primary, let alone the general, because once again, all those television ads of grounded airplanes and grandma not seeing her grandkids at Christmas is going to be a real issue. So I could be wrong, but that's really my genuine take on it. And you also got to figure, looking at Maine, I've been talking about this the Senate race up there a fair bit with Janet Mills and Graham Plattner running for a Democratic seat on the Democratic side up there, where I think Susan Collins is who they're looking to replace. It's a left versus right thing. I mean, this is, or center left, Overton window, Freudian slip there. It's going to be Graham Plattner, who's a progressive, silly goose, who has said a lot of things in the past, had to cover up a Nazi tattoo and things of that nature, but he's a populist left-wing Democrat. He's a leftist. He wants all sorts of things that Janet Mills, who's the current governor up there and is opposing him for the Democratic ticket, is an establishment Schumer Democrat. She's got the backing of the Democratic National Committee when it comes to her race. I guarantee someone like her would definitely agree with Jeanne Shaheen as just opening up. Plattner's not going to say that. He also doesn't have any skin in the game. He's an outsider, and that outsider status is basically it's worth its weight in gold when it comes to Democratic primary, and Maine's nightmare of a political situation. they're a mess up there when it comes to politics. We're here in the golden state of New Hampshire, thank God, where we don't have to directly deal with it, but all my family lives up there, so I follow it. Definitely suggest checking out the MaineWire.com. Steve Robinson does great reporting on all that, but Plattner's a fascinating guy. I keep bringing him up because it would be another Bernie Sanders. It would be a populist leftist that does a great job with grabbing attention with people, and he comes across as legitimate. He comes across as real, and Janet Mills does not have that. She's an establishment, old school, pushing 80-year-old Democrat that wants to run for Senate. Guess what? We're tired. The general public is tired of seeing old people that die or go into dementia or barely able to communicate continue to be in office. You figure there was a bunch of comments from Angus King, who if I remember right, he wasn't happy about the shutdown ending. He wanted to continue it. I could be wrong, but like he couldn't even get a sentence out. Senator Angus King was the governor when I was growing up in Maine, and these guys gotta go, man. Why? I've been talking about this for so long. I gotta beat this dead horse because it's so important. If you're an old politician, business leader, anything like that, it should be your job when you're after 70 especially, you should be a mentor. You should be mentoring to get the next generation of people that are going to be leading our country, leading our businesses, taking over political activists, organizations. Like, it should not be, we got to create a whole new infrastructure because you refuse to pass on to the next generation. It's not nepotism. I know some people out there will probably say something like that. It's a matter of you care about the future of this country. It's patriotism. It should be you care about your society and your grandkids and things like that, and the boomers just don't get that. It's painful. It's painful to see that you have someone who's going to be, I think Mills is going to be 78 if she gets the nomination when she gets into office. She'll be the oldest junior senator in the history of the Senate. That's terrifying when you see Dianne Feinstein being wheeled out and then promptly dying a few days later after being gone for 6 months. As you see Mitch McConnell, old cocaine Mitch there, just falling over and stopping mid-sentence and not knowing where he is and getting carted off to the hospital for the umpteenth time. This is bad. I don't see it getting better. It's unfortunate. The reason why I harp on it is I hope, I don't know, someone who hears me passes off to someone who actually has any authority or influence. I'm just sitting here doing my thing, but it's pathetic. Yeah, but here we are. All right, I want to talk about one more thing here, last bit of the show, something that especially, I'm of the right, but I'm more the libertarian right by far when it comes to certain things. So this is NPR reporter Alyssa Capassi. Supreme Court declines to revisit gay marriage decision. So from the article, the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday declined to take up a case challenging its landmark decision to legalize gay marriage nationwide. Challenge to the court's 2015 ruling came from Kim Davis, the former Kentucky clerk who refused to issue same-sex licenses after the court's Obergefell v. Hodges decision, which recognized a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. I will say, just because of my legal dorkiness I've got in my background, I think Obergefell is a terrible decision. I think it's a bad way to create law. It should not have done that way, just as so many other Supreme Court cases. It was nonsense the way it was handled, but at least it's done, because I think so many on the right, the left 100%, but so many on the left are just done with this. Like, we got much bigger fish to fry. We got Roe v. Wade knocked out. Gay marriage is, gay elections gay relationships are a lot more normalized. There's always going to be those people that are not okay with it. It is what it is. You're not going to change everyone's minds. But I sincerely believe that a majority of this country are fine with gay marriage and want to move on. Because if they're honestly wanting to get married and have a single partner relationship, then we should just enable that. I mean, there's a lot of minute details when it comes to things of that nature, but people don't choose to be gay. Like, it is what it is. We want them to have single partner relationships because for health reasons, for the benefit of society reasons, economic reasons. There's lots of reasons why we want to have that happen. We should enable that wherever we can because gay people are here. They exist. It's something they don't choose, and we should help them have as ethical a lifestyle as humanly possible, and also make their lives easier by giving them the benefits that come from marriage, like with next of kin things and other things of that nature. In the aftermath of her refusal, Davis was jailed for acting contempt. I don't really care. Davis was kind of in my opinion, she's a little bit of a whack job, but it is what it is. So she's not alone in wanting to challenge the legality of same-sex marriage, according to Lambda Legal, which advocates for gay rights. In this year alone, at least 9 states have entertained bills or resolutions criticizing Obergefell or sought to limit marriage to heterosexual couples. This is going to be inevitable no matter what. We're going to see all sorts of crazy abortion laws proposed at state houses. It's not that hard, generally speaking, to get into a state-level office, so people who have crazy opinions that most people don't agree with are going to get proposed. I'm tired of seeing that as an argument that we need to do a bigger bill for any reason. There's always going to be crazy bills proposed. So it is whatever on that. And there's some stuff in Texas. It's at the Supreme Court level. Had the Supreme Court decided to hear Davis's case and later overturn Obergefell, same-sex marriage would still be protected on the federal level. 2022, former President Joe Biden signed into law the Respect for Marriage Act, which appeals the Defense of Marriage Act. It recognizes the legitimacy of same-sex and interracial marriages. If Obergefell was overturned, however, individual states could refuse to recognize same-sex marriage, and also a Republican president would have the ability to just overturn that executive order because it's an executive order. This is the biggest thing that really bothers me about this whole thing is Democrats had the ability in the Biden years and the Obama years and things of that nature to get gay marriage legalized. They had the opportunity and they never did. And because of that, it makes people cynical like myself that they didn't want it legalized because they wanted to be able to have this activist movement still behind it and this activating movement for getting people to get motivated to interact in all this. I really hate thinking that, but I am that cynical when it comes to many political operators of the activists left or right. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle on. This should have been made a law a long time ago. This should not have been a concern for anyone because Democrats should have made this happen siding with some of the more libertarian on the right that really don't care about this and want to encourage single partner relationships and all the benefits economically that come with that. But here we are again, just people getting scared and people getting, for some reason, freaked out that interracial marriage is going to get turned over because of Clarence Thomas, who's literally in an interracial marriage. Don't forget that, please. Anytime people throw that out there. Clarence Thomas's marriage, if in theory, in this weird, crazy planet that these people are referring to, his marriage would be overturned, not legal anymore too, which is crazy because I don't know, this whole thing's nuts. It'd be helpful if we had some good laws created every now and then on single issues of this nature, but instead we're dealing with a government shutdown for 45 days with nothing getting done, with our Republicans in the majority in the House, Senate, and in the executive branch. No, we're too busy playing footsie and continuing to deal with Israel and Ukraine and all this silliness. Nothing real getting done. Borders closed. I like that. That's great. Kind of screwing the pooch when it comes to the the deportations, but what can I say? It's the Donald Trump administration. You get what you can get and hope that he doesn't whack the baby with a hammer, as the analogy goes so much in the Donald Trump years. All right. NewEnglandTake.com. As I said in the beginning of the show, if you want every episode as an email, please subscribe over there. It's free. You can't pay me. Don't have to. Appreciate any money, but please be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. I'm on all major podcast platforms. Also, if you just want the audio version of the show, listen on the background in the car, that's the place to do it. As always, big thank you to WKXL-NHTalkRadio.com for picking up the show. Up next over there, so I air 8:30 to 9 a.m. Over there, next up is Facing the Future by the Concord Coalition. Some different economic takes than I might have on this program. Bob Bixby does some interesting things over there. Big thank you to thegranitegrock.com for picking up the show. Great articles recently over there, especially around all this craziness with all the candidates and everything of that nature. It's definitely good to hear some different opinions that you don't necessarily get in the opinion pages of the Union Leader or the Monitor or anything of that nature. Be sure to check that out also. All right, NewEnglandTake.com. Talk to you soon.